Welcome back to Miss Eddie's Math Movies, where it's a cute to be a square. Today's lesson is 6.2 Parallelograms. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to use properties of parallelograms. First, we're going to define parallelogram. It's a lot like what it sounds like. You see the word parallel in there. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral. You remember that means four sides. A quadrilateral with opposite sides parallel. We'll draw a picture to go with that. So, parallelogram looks something like this. And we'll use our symbol. If you remember, a little arrow or a triangle means parallel. So those opposite sides are parallel, and these opposite sides are parallel. And we're going to talk about a lot of things that are special about parallelograms. So one thing, if you see a quadrilateral that's a parallelogram, then its opposite sides are congruent. So they're not only parallel, but they also have the same length. So PQ is congruent to SR. And QR is equal to PS. Opposite sides are equal. Opposite sides are congruent. So now we're going to use what we just learned to do this example. We just learned that the opposite sides are equal. So what's opposite of 5? Over here. So this is 5 if opposite sides are equal. And this is opposite of 3. So GH is 5. JH is 5, and GH is 3. All right, down here I want you to find a B and a D. Do this now. This is just like example 1. There are other special things about parallelograms. So the opposite sides are equal, the opposite sides are parallel, and also the opposite angles are equal. In measure, the opposite angles are congruent. So P is congruent to R, and Q is congruent to S. Notice they're marked that way too. There's another special thing about angles. So this is angles and so is this here. The quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then it's consecutive angles. Well, it's consecutive. Let's talk about that. Consecutive means next to. So the angles that are next to each other, so opposite angles are equal. Angles next to each other are supplementary. If you remember, supplementary means that together they equal 180. And maybe you'll remember this from way back, I think it was chapter 3, it's a long time ago, we talked about, like, if these are parallel lines, which they are, and this is the transversal. If you remember this, you guys called these same side interior angles, and same side interior had to make 180. So we're just using the exact same thing that we learned a long time ago, bringing it back and putting it in a four-sided shape. Follow-up. Use the words in the box at the right to make 2 true statements. Congruent, consecutive, opposite, and supplementary. I want you to do this now. All right, you're going to use Theorem 6.3 and 6.4, which are right above. Use those theorems to fill in these blanks. Now we need to find angle measures. All right, well, we just learned 2 things about angles. We learned opposite angles are congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary. So let's use that down here in this example. Opposite angles are equal. So if P is 70, opposite of P is R. So R must be 70. So put that there. Now we have consecutive angles, angles next to each other. We just learned that consecutive angles have to equal 180. So that means I need 110 more to make 180. And opposite angles are equal, so this must be 110. So if we want to fill in these blanks, R is equal to P, because they're opposite, so they're both 70. Q and P we said have to make 180, and we already had 70, so that's why we needed 110 more degrees. S and Q were opposite, so they were both 110, because opposite angles are equal. So our final answer was R is 70, Q is 110, and S is 110. You don't need to show all of this work. You could just write it on your picture. Estimate the angle measures. All right, I'm going to give you one, then I'm going to have you do this. It looks like W is a little bit bigger than 90. So I'm going to say W is 100. I want you to fill in the rest. And then what do they all add up to be? So add these all together. So do this now. Do that now. And here we need to find all the missing angles. So do this now. Just write it in your picture. Write what this angle is. Write this angle. Write this angle. This is just like the example we did. This is just like example 2 if you need to use a guide. And the last thing we're going to learn about a parallelogram, if a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, then its diagonals bisect each other. Circle this word bisect. Bisect means cut in half. So one diagonal gets cut in half and the other diagonal gets cut in half. So take a look here. QS is one of the diagonals. It gets cut in half. See, this half is equal to this half. That means M is right in the middle. M is the midpoint. And look at PR. PR is getting cut in half. Here's one half. Here's the other half. So QM is equal to MS. Because QS got cut in half. So here's one half. Here's the other half. All right, here's another half. Its matching half is MR. Now we're going to apply this. Find TX. So we're going to find this length right here. Well, we know that X is perfectly in the middle. We know that VT got cut in half. So mark this half is equal to this half. So TX is the same length as XV, which means TX is 3. Each half must be equal. This is M cubed, signing out.